This episode of the Beauty Industry Podcast was brought to you by Murad Skincare Australia. Hello and welcome to the Beauty Industry Podcast, your online support community for the professional beauty industry. I am your host, founding director of Beauty Industry, Tamara Reid. Here we are closing the competitive gap and speaking your language. This is a platform created and dedicated to the professional beauty industry, valuing community over competition. We serve to help connect you with inspiration from industry experts, expand your knowledge through educational pieces, and bring you the latest in product and technology innovation. This is Beauty Industry. Today my guest is Tasneem Shahidullah from Tasneem Cosmetics. For many years, Tasneem personally struggled with feeling the love when it came to makeup, especially when finding the perfect lipstick shade. For some reason, if you're 2 shades darker than almond, you're going to face nightmare nudes and off-tone reds. Having had enough of being left out of the commercial beauty industry, Tasneem decided to create her very own custom lipsticks with the shades carefully crafted to suit not only her skin tone, but also a variety of complexions. Being a third-generation South Asian woman living in a Western society, Tasneem wanted to foster a brand that acknowledges and celebrates her personal cultural background along with a multitude of backgrounds. For too long, brands in society have happily utilised people of colour for their appearance and aesthetics, but not given them a voice nor identity or even considered them in the development process of creating their beauty products. Tasneem's personal cultural upbringing has defined the person she is today, from appearance, mindset, interaction, and character. So she's making it a key focus for Tasneem Cosmetics to unify beauty, culture, and colours. Talking about the education we should be searching for to better show up for all cultures, the work that needs to be done from top down to represent every person that walks through our doors in our marketing campaigns, and very generously sharing her own personal stories with the lack of inclusion she felt growing up. From Tasneem Cosmetics, today we welcome Tasneem Shahidullah. Tasneem, welcome to the Beauty Industry Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for waking up. Can you tell the listeners where you are?
I'm currently in Estonia. I know it sounds very random. Estonia, Tallinn, for those who know a bit of Estonia. It's the capital here.
Amazing. Yeah, I was telling my husband last night, he always asked me, what does your day look like the next day? And I said, I'm recording a podcast with a guest who's in Estonia. And he was like, wow, okay, of all places.
I know, like before we moved here, I had never heard of Estonia. Isn't that so like wild? But no, I love it if you ever have a chance to visit once borders are open and whatnot. It's definitely a really lovely place to come and visit.
Amazing. So apart from being in Estonia, we ask all of our guests an initial question of how they entered into the beauty industry. And I'd love to start with you there today.
Yes, of course. So I've been working in the beauty industry, I guess, since university. I studied fashion and graphic design, and then just through, navigating through jobs and whatnot, I found myself within beauty. And then I took the journey into creating my own business, which celebrates all types of people, cultures, and colors. The reasoning behind that kind of mirrors, I guess, my prior journey within the roles that I had and kind of seeing, I guess, misrepresentation or exclusion of people of various backgrounds and colors, I guess, in the beauty industry. So that kind of kick-started that journey for me.
Yeah, amazing. Right. So you were a consumer in the beauty space and you were also working behind the scenes. Roles as well. So can you share what they looked like?
Yeah, so I mostly did graphic design and social media for various companies within the beauty industry. I went from working with makeup brands to more I guess, service-related beauty companies. So ones that did, I guess, laser hair removal or skin treatments, et cetera, et cetera. So I got to see like both sides of the coin. And yeah, for me, I just noticed that both elements needed a lot of work because obviously growing up in Brisbane, Australia, and then moving to Melbourne, Australia, the variety of, I guess, skin treatments for people of color just, it wasn't at that level just yet. So yeah, it was really interesting to kind of dive in and see what was available, what was accessible to people, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and it is exactly as you've explained. I mean, you've just given me a little flashback to when I was in education and teaching classes of peels and skin needling and things like that, and always telling them, you know, you've got to stop at 3, be really cautious of 4, 5, 6, and I'm referring to the Fitzpatrick scale. We don't treat, right? And so exactly as you're saying there, it must have been very difficult for you to be on the other end of a marketing campaign to try and market to people who you really couldn't have safe and effective treatments for.
Exactly. That was that one side, and then also then diving into the makeup side of the industry. There were times where lots of brands just didn't have shades for people of color, or even catering to their skin texture, because that's a big element as well. We don't all have the same skin texture. Yeah, so it was really interesting, and I just think it comes down to education, like you were saying, that getting it from the core. Let's start from education and build up, and you know, that's kind of the way moving forward, I feel.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you don't know what you don't know. So education is the way that you can find that knowledge. I'm
Yeah.
interested to ask you, I mean, as little girls, when we're growing up, generally, you know, we kind of go into our parents' makeup and cosmetic stash. And of course, we see it, you know, all through the department stores and things. Do you remember what age you were when you actually realized that your skin tone wasn't being included in these kind of typical color palettes here in Oz?
Yeah, it's kind of, I've had various funny experiences, or at least I've like taken it in a humorous kind of note. I remember just, okay, one was my year 12 formal, so the biggest kind of day, because prior to that you can mix and match, and I was able to finesse bits and pieces to kind of cater for my skin tone, but I was never able to find one or like a range of products that was just, okay, take it off the shelf and wear it. So I was able to finesse. But I remember for my year 12 formal, I went to one of the beauty counters in Maya and went to get my makeup done. And I remember going to the Estee Lauder counter because I knew that they had a various range for people of color, and they didn't stock in the Brisbane Maya my shade. They just didn't think it needed to be stocked in that department store because it just didn't sell as much. And I remember getting my makeup done, and I was about 3 shades lighter than I should have been. And, you know, when you're that young, you're just so dramatic. And I remember like being fine, like, you know, she put on the makeup and I was like, oh yeah, I love it. But it's the classic thing of when you get your fringe cut, you go into the car and you just bawl your eyes out. And yeah, that was one kind of pivotal moment where I was like, oh my God, like, that's crazy. Estee Lauder is the company that I researched. They have the product, but then the department store decided not to stock it because they just don't get enough sales in it. So why bother? And I feel that was like a reoccurring theme growing up. It's like, why bother if it's not big enough for these, you know, for this group of people to buy? We're not gonna stock it. And that for me kind of, it impacts you in a way, obviously the physical way you're not able to buy it, but then in the emotional sense where you're like, oh, am I worthy enough because this wider audience is saying no, not really. So there was that. And then I remember the classic, I don't know whether you had it with your high school experience, but the classic foundation lip. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Yes, the foundation lip is here to traumatize me to this day. I remember, doing the foundation lip again with probably a foundation not suited to my skin tone, and it looked god awful. But yeah, thankfully, those photos have been deleted and erased from the internet. Thank you.
Forever. I was
Yeah,
actually just
forever.
saying that on an episode with a makeup artist, Tanya Guccione. We were chatting about trends, and I said, "Oh my goodness, what were we doing with the foundation lip?"
It was just, I can't. And it was probably the same time where people were over plucking. Like it was,
It
we
was a
needed
thing.
help. Yeah.
It's interesting what you say there about not stocking the least requested colors, I guess, or colors
Mm,
as you've described don't sell as
yeah.
much as like a typical Fitzpat, 2 and 3, because I
Mm,
actually was just in a shop before coming on to this podcast recording,
mm-hmm.
and I'll call them out. It was Sports Girl, and I was in the change
Ooh.
rooms, and I'm actually pregnant at the moment, so I'm trying on clothes where I was never ever tried on clothes. I was just
Mm-hmm.
things, but now I've got this huge pumpkin belly going, oh my goodness, I need to try stuff on, right? But in the change rooms, there was a little sign and it said, we now stock size 8 to 16 in our stores, size 4, 6, 18, and 20 online only. And I thought,
Uh,
oh, okay,
yeah.
interesting. And it just
Mm,
resonated to me when you said that, because it's not one of the most requested sizes. Therefore,
right.
they can go online. But no, they should be
Exactly.
able to have the ability to try on in store as
Exactly.
well.
And could you imagine, like, I guess, for plus size women going into the store, having the confidence to be like, you know what, I'm going to go shop with my girls, and then you can't even partake like that. Those are the little kind of nuances and the little micro uncomfortabilities that happen in our life that I guess build up and stack up, and those are the things that you remember. Yeah, so well, yeah, it happens across the board, be it like with sizing, be it with skin tone, skin texture, ethnicities, disabilities, everything.
Mm. Did that lack of, build up, I guess, every time
Mm,
you've got that little encounter happen, did that
mm,
ever make you second guess your identity? And I guess what was tied to that?
mm,
Because, it wasn't representative of that cultural diversity. Did you
mm.
have those moments of confusion?
Absolutely. I think, like, I probably struggled with that more so in my adolescent stage, and now I've kind of grown into myself. I'm able to, research and learn, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're, especially in high school, you are very much a product of your surroundings, of your peers, of what you're being taught, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I remember in high school, I felt really just uncomfortable and like, I mean, for lack of a better word, just like very unpretty. Do you know what I mean? And that, like, for a girl when you're younger, is like the hugest thing. If um, It's one thing that I guess it's not represented in the media, people like you. On top of that, peers aren't really getting it because they're not like you, and then it's just, yeah, it's the growing pains of adolescence, one, and then I think on top of that, just not seeing the representation really does question you and second guess. And yeah, you kind of reject, for me, I rejected a lot of my South Asian culture and my South Asian, I guess, upbringing because I just didn't want to be different.
Yeah, completely. And or not that, yeah, completely, I get it, but when
Mm,
we are in teenage years, all we want to do
mm,
is be like our friends and like our group, and
yeah,
we don't want to stand out. We just want to
yeah,
all wear the same clothes, all have the same hair, because that's what the cool kids are doing. That's
exactly.
fitting in. And I even remember a few of my Asian girlfriends,
Mm,
like dulling down their Asian ethnicity and saying that
yeah,
normally I would eat rice for breakfast, but I'm not going to eat
yeah,
rice, or I'm not going to bring that into
yeah.
school because of that nuance that's just
Oh,
associated with being Asian.
absolutely. Yeah, I remember having a very interesting experience. I mean, I've grown up eating curries most of my life. Sometimes we have it for breakfast, sometimes we have it, lunch, dinner, etc. Um, and my mum would pack me very like South Asian food for lunch. And I remember like going to school and having my like unpacking my lunch, and it was a curry, and I was eating it with a spoon. And this boy came past and was like, "Oh, aren't you going to use your hands?" And it's little things like that where you're like, oh, you're not saying it out of interest and intrigue. That was kind of having a dig. And I remember going home and being like, I'm never having that again. I want peanut butter sandwiches, like getting so mad and like obviously misplacing my frustration with my parents. But it's just like funny little things like that where you're like, never again. only Vegemite sandwiches from now on. But yeah, it's just, yeah, the dulling down. I think that's a great wording for it. But I think it just comes down to, like, again, kids, it's not up to necessarily kids to know it all. I can understand I've probably said things that have not been politically correct or the most sensitive, but I think it comes down to, like, parents and also schooling. Like, I feel that was one thing that teachers and, yeah, parents just need to be more vigilant of. Like, it shouldn't be unnatural to see a South Asian girl having curry at school and to comment on it. It shouldn't be unnatural to see a girl wearing a hijab and comment on it. It shouldn't be unnatural to see an Asian person eating rice and comment on it. These are very, like, basic, normal things that haven't been normalized, unfortunately, within our communities and our, I guess, the Australian culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm being very mindful of this now, coming back to being pregnant, in thinking about how I'm going to be a mum and how I'm going to show up and be inclusive and be diverse with my kids. I mean, even in the TV shows they watch and in the books they read, it starts so much younger than we even realize. I mean, that perception of going to school, you go to school when you're like 7 years old, right? So you've already had 7 years prior. I mean, you do go to kindy as well, but you've already have all of that influence in what you read and what you watch and what you listen to that impacts then that behavior that we see at school. So it is really important, like, for us to have books of not just white people or cartoons, you know, of all different shapes and sizes and colors and backgrounds. And it's interesting when you really start to think about it, how unconscious we are of the fact, unless somebody like you is living and breathing it and shares their story. And I want to thank you for being so open and honest.
Oh, thank you. No, of course. I mean, it's all kind of just the experiences of it all, because I didn't even realize this until now. I didn't understand, I guess, my discomfort or why I felt a certain way when I was in high school. I just pinned it down to it was a bad day, or I don't know what it would be. But now it's like, oh, I think that was a reaction to X, Y, and Z, but that's only because of the lack of education or the lack of representation. Like, it all comes full circle, but it just takes hindsight and a few uncomfortable bumps along the way to realize that.
After the break, Tasneem shares with us her words on how we can do more and show up for every client that walks through our doors, as well as sharing what she hopes for the future of change and cultural inclusion through cosmetics. But first, a word from today's beauty partner. Community, if you are looking to gain total skin wellness for your clients, then look no further. Murad's science-backed professional skincare treatments and solutions promote healthy, nourished and beautiful skin. Murad's founder, Dr. Howard Murad, is recognised around the world as a leading visionary for his unmatched scientific innovations. A board-certified dermatologist, trained pharmacist and associate clinical professor of medicine, Dr. Murad has personally treated over 50,000 patients, so it's safe to say that he knows skin. For more than 30 years, Murad has been committed to developing clinically proven, cruelty-free products that meet the meticulous standards for safety, efficacy, and care you would expect from a doctor. Plus, they're supported by Dr. Murad's industry-first research for the most advanced formulas that don't just consider a symptom or a concern, but rather address total skin health. The team at Murad want to help you achieve yours and your clients' skincare goals, and they're so kindly offering a free product pack to start you on your journey. That is right, you heard it here. It is free. All you have to do is email kbacon, that's KBACON, at murad.com and mention the Beauty Industry Podcast to have your Murad skincare pack sent out to you. As a longtime lover of Murad myself, trust me, your clients and your skin will thank you. Thank you so much to the team at Murad for making this episode possible. And now back to Tasneem. And this is a conversation that I'm continuing to push the envelope on in the professional beauty industry, because in working with a lot of brands, I am just seeing the same damn model in every single campaign, every single marketing promo. And for you, you would have definitely seen this in your marketing roles. But this too is, again, because these heads of these companies are going, well, this is our main client. But when you look at the clientele who we're treating in the treatment room, that ain't it. They're not a size 6, blonde haired, blue eyed. They're all different shapes of sizes. We've got cellulite, we've got different, there's so many different things. And so I'm telling our community, push back. If your tanning is not diverse and not inclusive, why not? A lot of people tan, every nationality tans, why aren't we showing that? I mean, what do you think is the right step forward, I guess, to do better in our marketing campaigns and be better decisions than we're currently making?
Yeah, I think it would just come down to really thinking about your consumer, looking at what's happening on the ground, looking at what's happening, with the people that are shopping and asking them the questions. Because more than not, you will notice that people of various backgrounds, of various colors, of various kind of, backgrounds are the ones shopping your brand. So just being understood, making it authentic, not plugging in a brown person because you think you need to get the inclusivity marks. You need to be aware of what is actually happening within your brand. So that would kind of be my biggest, just being authentic about it and really wanting to include everyone, because your brand is catered to everyone, not just one type of person.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's not just about ticking a box because you want to go, okay, well, what are the 4 pillars? We've got to look at sustainability. So maybe let's, change over our towels. Oh, and we should also look at inclusivity. So let's do this in our marketing campaign, and just ticking the box for the sake of ticking it. I think you really have to want to create change. You have to want to serve your clients on another level. And I really appreciate that.
Because it was really interesting. I was having a conversation with one of my friends, and he was mentioning that he fails to get a lot of jobs or, I guess, sponsorships because he's a South Asian man, but they've already ticked the box with a black man on their campaign. So they don't need another. So that kind of that's where the tokenism, and that's where the that kind of mindset of just ticking the inclusivity box doesn't actually follow through for benefits. It really just kind of is like, okay, well, we've done our job, we've got the black girl in, we can relax. And it's like, well, no, let's think about everyone and everything and why you're picking these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it just starts with being conscious of what you're putting out there. I mean, for us, especially on our social media, we try and have every 4th post is a person of color, and no matter what that may be, because we realize that 1 in 4 Australians are a person of color, right? So for us, it's not about ticking the box. It is being about creating the change and showing up for people. And as soon as we did start this change, and look, I'm not going to say that I'm perfect. It was only about 6 months ago, at the start of this year, where we went, hang on, oh my goodness, we've had an event and there's a whole lot of white people here. And somebody actually messaged me on Instagram and said, I don't see any other person of color in this photo. And I went, wow, thank you so much for pulling me up, and I thought, I kind of, at the start, I was a little bit reactive because I thought, well, hang on, I can't tell people to buy a ticket to my event. You know what I mean? If whoever chooses to buy the ticket buys the ticket. But then I thought, no, Tamara, you can, because you're subtly and unconsciously telling who to come to your event. So when we started molding, our image and changing it, and as you said before, putting a woman with our tote bag in a hijab, or an Asian makeup eye on our reel, or something like that, people started to change, and they started to DM us and say, oh my goodness, I am so happy I've not seen this in the professional beauty industry. And I was like, yay, oh my goodness. Not because we wanted to tick the box, but because I was like, I'm finally having them be heard on our platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I think, what everyone wants, anyone wants. They just want to be heard. They just want to feel comfortable and accepted. And that's what I love so much about social media. I know social media has its, ebbs and flows like anything, but the fact that it can foster so many communities and make people feel so heard and represented is Nothing like I've ever seen. I've not seen that with media. So this is a really interesting and special hub to have these platforms, and for the consumer to literally be able to contact you and you be able to kind of nip it in the bud like that is amazing. Yeah, I'm really excited for what the future brings with that space in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talk to me about Tasneem Cosmetics. So, coming back to your original story at the start, you didn't find shades that were applicable or acceptable on your skin tone. We had the white full face. So, tell me then, what are you doing differently?
Yes, so obviously Tasneem fostered from the concept from my childhood trauma, let's call it that. And I first and foremost wanted to develop a product that would suit all skin tones and skin textures. So the development side of things was really, really important for me. So I went through months of sampling, formulating, kind of all of the above, testing on various skin tones, various skin textures. So that was kind of the initial side of things. And not to say that other brands don't do that, but the thing that I feel I do with Tasneem Cosmetics, with the marketing side of things, is really promoting the cultural aspect of people and various people of different backgrounds. Because for me, growing up, I wasn't just wearing makeup for going to work or going to school or whatever it was. I was wearing makeup for various cultural events, be it Eid festivities, Diwali festivities, you know, I don't know, bar mitzvahs at this stage. There were various types of things I was wearing makeup for. So I wanted to highlight that within the brand and really focus on the cultural element, because I know a lot of times the beauty industry at this stage is happy to kind of plug people of color in their campaigns, but they don't really give them a voice. They don't really understand what the person behind the pigment is. So that's something that I really wanted to push for Tasneem Cosmetics.
Yeah, incredible. And you're doing such a fantastic job about it. Every time I go on your Instagram page, it just fills me with so much joy seeing,
Oh,
so
thank
many
you.
different cultures and looks as well. Oh my goodness, if I had half the talent that your posters do, wow.
Oh my goodness, I know. I'm always very shocked. I was like, wow, how did you create such an amazing look? But no, there are really talented people, and like I mentioned, social media is such a amazing kind of platform that fosters such a great community. And yeah, no, I've been really lucky to have people kind of resonate with the brand the way they have.
Yeah, gorgeous. What's been the biggest lesson that you've learnt in creating this cosmetics company?
The biggest lesson, ooh, many lessons to have been learned, but I guess one is patience and also tenacity, because things like a brand don't pop up or pop off overnight. You have to put in a lot of work, you have to put in a lot of hard yards, and just kind of having trust in the process, because sometimes there are days where you can feel really defeated and like, oh, okay, is this even working? Like, I've put myself into this brand and I'm not getting the return that I want to today. But then there are other days where you're like, wow, everyone loves it. It's so easy. I can't, it's just kind of trusting the process and putting the time and effort into it. Yeah, that would kind of be my biggest lesson with it. And
Yeah.
just planning, pre-plan. If you can plan till the cows come home, I think that will make your life so much easier. So we've got various tools that we use to pre-plan our marketing, pre-plan our just product development, everything.
Yeah, amazing. Somebody said to me only recently, a couple of months ago, on your point to tenacity, is that
Mm,
everybody can weather the storm, but it's how long the storm
mm,
goes for that can you weather it or
yeah.
not. And I think that's so
Oh,
true of being a
yeah.
business owner, because you feel like, okay, today I've got this problem. I'm going to learn from that
Mm,
experience. And then next
yeah.
time I'll know how to handle it. But there's generally
Yeah.
not a next time of that same problem. It's like a whole new
Right.
problem, right? That you've
Oh,
also got to learn how
yeah.
to navigate.
Yeah, of course. But I guess it's just because I feel I'm I can be a bit of a reactive person in my emotions. So like that, I guess those types of experiences, at least you're like, okay, this isn't the first problem I've had, but it won't be the last one. So I need to figure it out and get my life together and just plow through, because it's the only way. Because I guess no one's going to love your business as much as you. And that's kind of a scary thing to think as well, because you're like, wow, it's really all the chips are in my, I guess, corner, or whatever the expression is. Like you've got
Yeah.
to really vouch for it as much as, yeah, you can, because you created it.
Absolutely. It's a hard realization when you realize that, isn't it?
Mm.
I normally
Yeah.
find when business owners hire their first team member or so, and then, they
Oh.
go, oh, but why doesn't she come in early? Or why doesn't she do this? Or she doesn't answer the phone when I call her. And I always say that no one's going to love your business like you will.
Yeah,
And when you realize that,
exactly.
you go, oh, okay, all right.
Very true. Yeah. And then it puts everything into perspective, and you're like, okay, I can have the range now to move forward with this relationship or this partnership or whatever it may be.
Yes. So, just touching base on where you are at the moment in Estonia,
Mm-hmm.
you've been
Yes.
traveling a lot, or
Yes.
COVID made us stop a
Yes.
little, but prior to that, you were
Yes, of
traveling.
course.
Um,
Yes.
in Australia, we are still pretty far behind. I mean, I listen to
Yes.
lots of different conversations across podcasts throughout the globe,
Mm-hmm.
and they are so many light years ahead of us. Why do
Yeah.
you think we are so far behind? Is it because we're just on our little old island over here, or, should we be doing?
Yeah. I think it comes down to the fact, like, Australia is quite a young country when you compare it to various countries around the world, and it is isolated in a sense. Obviously, it's a little, not a little island, a big old island on, very far from a lot of countries. Um, and yeah, I guess with immigration and whatnot, the amount of diversity isn't as vast as somewhere like the UK, which is where I was living prior to Estonia, and that is very dense with a lot of different cultures and backgrounds. So I think it comes down to not necessarily seeing it, but in the same breath, it needs to be second nature to understand different cultures and backgrounds. Just because you don't see someone of a different culture or background doesn't mean you should be naive to it.
Mm.
That was the biggest thing that I found like quite um, confronting growing up, because I'm like, oh, I get that. Yeah, maybe I am the only South Asian girl in the classroom, but like that's not widely, you know, unique, if you know what I mean. Like Australia consumes a lot of American media, a lot of international media. So it's not like I'm not the first South Asian person you've ever encountered in your life. Maybe in person, yes, but in your life, that's not going to be the first time. So I think just opening up the tools, opening up the education. I guess parents need to be a little bit more inclusive in what they share with their children, be it with books of cultural diversities, be it with the shows that they let their children watch. In schools, it needs to be definitely more prevalent. Like, yeah, getting more of the historical studies, maybe more of cultural studies. Something that I spoke about on my Instagram IGTV a while ago was the fact that companies don't actually have discrimination training. That's just not done. We have hate. What's it called? We've got
Human
first aid
resources. Oh,
training.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got first aid training. We've got those kind of basic level elements, but discrimination training is just not something that's dealt with. But having been in the working beauty industry, it needs to be dealt with, because it comes down to the microaggressions and the wording of things. And if people don't know how to navigate with various different types of people and cultures in the workspace, it makes it very uncomfortable and very difficult. And that's where a lot of conflicts kind of bubble up. So yeah, just I think education needs to be the biggest thing for Australia to kind of move forward.
Yeah,
within
and
that
not
space.
being naive to the education either. I
Yeah,
mean, if you know that there's work to do, if you're a business owner or
yeah,
a therapist who's listening to this, perhaps going, "Oh, I haven't even thought of that," or I
yeah.
don't have, any of these policies in my business, or I've never
Mm,
even had the conversation with my team. Well,
yeah,
that's homework for you, and not just
yeah,
going, "Oh, we don't
absolutely.
need to do that because that's a huge privilege." But it's about
Yeah,
educating yourself on the people that are walking through your doors, which is why
yeah,
you've got a business, right?
exactly. And I guess with like a lot of therapists, that's a very personable job. You have to be, you know, yeah, you're talking to a lot of people, and you don't know how to navigate a conversation of someone of, I guess, an Islamic background, and a lot of the times they don't really want to showcase their skin, but you're offering a skin treatment. You need to know how to navigate that conversation in a comfortable way for yourself, but also that consumer as well. So I think that's where the maybe the word discrimination isn't the fluffiest of words, but a
Mm.
type of training that helps to navigate conversations with various people of all backgrounds, I think is the key, most important thing.
Absolutely. And you've just given me
Mm,
another flashback. I was actually in my second role and I was
mm,
a spa therapist. And
mm-hmm,
we were going into, there was a big group, I think there were about 5 women, and they were Islamic. And I was
mm,
doing a full day. So it was a 5 hour body scrub,
mm-hmm,
spa, salt,
mm-hmm.
yogurt, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
And
wow.
I
Mm-hmm,
had one of the youngest daughters, and I think she was only about
mm-hmm,
16 or 18, and I was trying to tell her to put the disposable G-string on,
mm,
and she just absolutely freaked
yeah,
out. And I was like, "What do you mean? It's just a disposable G-string, And
yeah,
it was so lucky that we had a therapist who was Islamic, and I went out of the room and I said, "I don't know what's going on. She just won't wear the G-string." She came back into the room and
yeah,
they had a conversation and said, "Look, she just wants to leave her own underwear on." And I was like,
mm,
"Oh, that's fine." But that moment for
yeah,
me was just such a light bulb going, "Okay,
yeah,
I need to learn how to deal with
yeah,
everyone because not all
yeah.
clients are going to look like me." Right. So
Yeah,
it's that
exactly. Or have the
communication.
same upbringing or whatever
Correct.
it may be, or comfortabilities. It might not even be a cultural thing. It could be like
Mm,
a body dysmorphia thing. People aren't
correct.
always going to be the most comfortable um, as we are or whoever else is. So, yeah, just knowing how to kind of converse and make everyone feel the love,
Safe.
I
Yeah,
guess. Yeah,
yeah.
safe. Yeah, the word is
Safe
safe.
in the
Yeah.
treatment room. Mm.
Mm.
So tell me, you're doing some pretty incredible things, making lots of progression and waves. Do
Hmm.
you have an ultimate goal? I mean, how do you see
Yeah.
Tasneem creating impact?
Oh, of course. Well, I guess through our messaging, through our marketing has always been like a really big thing for me. And to kind of take that to the next level, maybe doing, I guess, seminars even could be a really beautiful and exciting, stepping stone for Tasneem Cosmetics. Um, giving creating a platform for voices, allowing other people to speak, talk about their experience, show their talents as well, show their different techniques for different types of people of different cultures and yeah, just diversity. So yeah, I don't really know the trajectory just yet, but I have big things in mind. But yeah, we'll just have to see how it all kind of comes together and how it all snowballs, hopefully.
Yes, it's actually great that you don't have a plan because I think post COVID, when the world turns
Yeah.
back right side up, I think a lot of doors are going to open for you, and I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Oh, I hope so. Fingers crossed.
Well, thank you so much for coming and having a chat with me today. I really appreciate your time, and all of your willingness to be open and honest and to share your stories with us.
No, thank you so much. It was really enjoyable. And yeah, if anyone wants to check out Tasneem Cosmetics, be sure to.
What a special conversation that was today with Tasneem. One of our 4 value pillars at Beauty Industry is conversation, specifically to be able to hold space for progressive conversation that shares the tone and story of voices of all kinds. And it makes me extremely proud to be able to produce conversations like this today that truly live up to that value. This conversation might have you asking yourself how you can make a difference in our industry by showcasing all the diversities across colour, race, tone, texture, size, shape, or background. And if you are doing that, I encourage you to start doing the work to educate yourself before moving into the space of action. Take a good look at the types of clients you're servicing in your treatment rooms, and then reflect on the marketing campaigns of your brands and to your own social media channels. That will give you a pretty clear answer as to how and what you can change and implement immediately. You can see all of the incredible looks and creative work that shows up on the Tasneem Cosmetics Instagram by clicking through the show notes or searching for @Tasneem Cosmetics. Until next time, stay connected.